Okay, so for this demonstration, I'm going to start out by putting a little bit of ethanol in this Petri dish and lighting it on fire if I had a match handy. There it is. Okay. Can you turn the lights off, please? Oh, and I'm burning the tabletop too. Okay, this one's in the don't try this at home category. All right, but you can see here the fire is kind of boring, okay, if you want to call fire boring. It's kind of slow, and it takes a long time for all of that ethanol to boil. But what are we burning? We're burning a liquid. It's only mixing with the oxygen in the air and doing combustion right at the surface, okay? So it's not like all of the ethanol is burning all at once. It's only burning like at the very, very top layer. So I'm going to go ahead and just smother that and get that out of the way. All right, now we're going to do a more interesting fire, okay? So what I'm going to do, can you turn the lights back on? So I'm going to take some of the same ethanol, I'm going to put it into this container here, and we're going to shake this up so that some of the ethanol evaporates. Okay, so we'll shake that up really, really well. Okay, that should probably be good. And we're going to pour the ethanol out. Okay, so all that's left in here is the fumes from the ethanol that we just shook up here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to light those fumes on fire and see what happens. Okay, can you turn the lights off? All right, so here we go. I love the way that dances around in there. Okay, so that was a much more vigorous reaction. Why is that? Because what we were burning was the ethanol in the gas form. So every ethanol molecule is surrounded by oxygen molecules. So even though that was less ethanol than what I was burning earlier, we were basically burning all of that ethanol all at the same time. So we get a much more vigorous reaction like that. Now, I'll bet you want to see that again, right? Can we do it again in the same bottle? Turns out no, all right? The reason for this is I've used up the oxygen that is in this bottle, or at least used a lot of it, probably not all of it. So there's less oxygen in the bottle, and I burned that ethanol. So I basically turned that into carbon dioxide and water, which is not exactly flammable. In fact, we can prove there's water in here if you dump this out again. Okay, that liquid that came out of there, that's the water that we just made by burning the ethanol in the first place. Okay, so this is full of carbon dioxide and water vapor, which is stuff that isn't exactly flammable. In fact, CO2 and water, that's what we use to put out fires. So if we want to do it again, we basically have to do it in another bottle. So this time, we're going to use just ordinary isopropyl alcohol. Okay? So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to shake this up, pour out the liquid, and light the fumes on fire. Now, this is ordinary, like I say, rubbing alcohol. This is 70% isopropyl alcohol. So it's 70% alcohol, and it's a different alcohol from what we did earlier. The alcohol we did earlier was straight ethanol, no water in it. This is isopropyl alcohol, which is a little bit less vigorous in itself, and it's mixed with a little bit of water, 30% water. So it won't be quite as fast a reaction. Okay, we can go ahead and dump that out. And if we light that, Okay? So a little bit slower reaction than the first time. Not quite as much of a loud whoosh. Now this last one that we're going to do here is a mixture of methanol and water. Now, if I were doing this with straight methanol, I'd be a little bit worried about doing this because methanol, that's a race car fuel. That's even more vigorous than burning ethanol, okay? But this is 50% methanol and 50% water. So that's going to slow the reaction down a lot because there is so much water in there. But the reason I'm using methanol for this is methanol burns with a really kind of a pretty, kind of a pale blue flame. Okay? So, it's going to give us a pretty effect in the flame when we do this. Okay, and go ahead and pour it out. Okay, the lights. And let's see what happens here. Okay, so like this, we get a much slower, kind of more controlled burn, just from top to bottom here. The bottle actually gets quite a bit hotter during that last demonstration than it did with the first two. The first two, it burns out so quickly, it doesn't really have time to warm the plastic up much. But for this one, the flame lasts a little bit longer, so the bottle sometimes starts melting after a while. So what we're going to do now is we're going to light this ordinary little cotton ball here on fire, okay? So we'll go ahead and light that. We'll turn the lights off so we can see the flame a little better. Okay, well that's boring. All right, it's a slow fire. Takes a long time for that cotton ball to burn, and you see the fire is basically out. It's still smoldering a little bit, but there is still an awful lot of unburned carbon left in there, and now it's just kind of smoking a little bit. So we're just going to smother that and get that out of the way. Okay, now chemists can do a much better job of making stuff flammable than that, all right? So what I've got here, this is a piece of cotton which has been treated with a mixture of nitric and sulfuric acid, and it turns it into something called nitrocellulose or gun cotton. So we're going to see what that burns like. So go ahead and turn off the lights. Okay? I love that foop sound that it makes there. So you can see it burns much, much faster, and it burns almost completely. There's a little bit that got blown off to the side where there's some ash and stuff like that. But basically, almost all of it is converted into gases in the air. So it's complete combustion. By nitrating the cellulose fibers in the cotton, that's what the mixture of nitric and sulfuric acid does. Is essentially it plants nitro groups along the cellulose backbone of all of the cotton fibers that are in there. So it's like we're planting oxygen deep within the cotton fibers. So it burns all at once instead of just around the edges, where that's the only place where it can contact oxygen. So now we're going to do a gun cotton cascade here. So let's see if all of these light up. didn't quite hit this one right here. Okay? All right, so what I'm gonna do now, at the end of this little cardboard tube, I've got a piece of gun cotton wedged in here. I've got a little bit sticking out the bottom. I'm gonna put a cotton ball in, a ping pong ball in here. And as the name implies, gun cotton, you can use this in a gun in place of gunpowder. It doesn't have as much of a bang as gunpowder, but it'll still make a bullet come out of a gun. So basically I'm going to light my gun cotton here. It's going to turn into hot expanding gases, and it's going to shoot my ping pong ball out of here. So let's see what happens with this.